welcome back to another edition of Inside Plano. I am Shannah Hayley, Director of Communications for the City of Plano, and with me is the host and my co-host, Director of Media Relations, Amanda McNew. Hi, everyone.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Well, and today we are excited to have a special guest with us, Michelle Hawkins, the Downtown Manager for Downtown Plano. Welcome,
Hi,
Michelle.
thank you. Thank you for having me again.
You're a frequent flyer on our podcast, and we love it. And one thing that we're going to be talking about today is something that used to be part of your job, and you still have some oversight on, public art, particularly murals in the city. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, let's start by talking about that first mural project that the city did. When did that happen, and what was the thinking behind it?
The first mural project, so that was 2017. It was pitched to the Heritage Commission by HDPA, which was a nonprofit for historic downtown. They wanted to do a three set of murals in downtown. One of them is on Georgia's Farmers Market. You'll still see it there. Will Heron is the artist. The other one is on the back of Vickery Park, faces the DART tracks. That one was a crowdsourced project. So what they wanted to do is have that using historic pictures. So they asked the community to submit any kind of older vintage photos. If you have relatives that had photos of growing up in Plano, they sourced it through the libraries. So bring in your pictures into the libraries. We'll scan them all in, and then the artist chose the picture to do from that. So that one took quite a while. And then the other one was supposed to go on what was Angela's on the Crosswalk back then, but it ended up being a sculptural piece that went in next to Legend Tattoo. So we call it a mural because it was part of the mural project, but really that's a sculpture. But that was by the Builder Brothers, I think.
And I feel like at one point in time there was a voice activation
part of that one. Yeah,
is there still a voice activation?
I don't think that it's active. But that grant was with HDPA and actually Plano Art Association. So those murals are owned by the Plano Art Association.
Very cool.
So what was the discussion before they even came to be? Was there a vision for all of the murals?
Those were just that three mural project. And like I said, those were done by nonprofits. So they came together wanting to do something special for downtown and pitched that to the Heritage Commission to receive the funds for it. Now, it took a lot of work because they had to work with the private property owners. So there are contracts on that, maintenance, those kind of things. But they make such a big impact. I don't know how many people take pictures next to the one at Georgia's for sure.
Yeah, that one's nice and bright. I think it really stands out in
does.
Downtown.
It does.
Yeah, it's super cool. Well, did you ever at any point kind of realize like this mural is a little bit of a game changer and that it would become such a part of downtown's identity?
You know, I wish I could take credit for them, but it was the nonprofits that really came together to do those. So as I was a part of the facilitation, but I did not lead those projects. But I didn't see I guess I don't want to say I didn't see the vision, but I didn't know how much of an impact it would make. So.
Well, and we've seen murals pop up all over town, and I think it really escalated after those initial downtown murals went in. So talk a little bit about, and, you know, just full disclosure, listeners, we were discussing a little bit the process of murals. It's very interesting because it's not a formalized thing. So how do murals come to be in Plano?
If it's not backed by a nonprofit to a Heritage Commission to get grants or something like that, and a private owner wants to have a mural on theirs, I learned that the city's process is pretty simple. When Black Rock Coffee, the artist to that came and emailed me back in, oh my gosh, when was that? 2018. So right after the murals went in downtown. And so I worked with building inspections, and I didn't have to work with Heritage because it wasn't in downtown. And you submit the plans to building inspections in the sign permit process. They look at it to make sure it's not pointing to a business. It's literally art, and they'll sign off on it, and you're good to go. So.
Wow. Well, what kind of wall or space is best for a mural, just based on what you've observed through town?
I personally like the ones that have big impact, so scale. If it's a large area that is a solid color, a beige color, a cinder block. Those are good spots. I like when they're a little bit hidden. So the ones over in, is it Legacy North, Shops of Legacy North, where you kind of walk and then it's like there's a mural through this tunnel to like the parking garage. Mm-hmm. Like I love those kind. You know, Instagrammable places are very important to our community, and so having something where people can go to and get pictures, get odd angle pictures, something unexpected, without having to fight other people to get that picture. So a little bit off the path, I find more interesting.
It's true. You talk about the photos. I think that's really important. It's also really a place to gather. It's really a place that you can see people just really start to meet up at certain spots. Sure. Have you seen that more?
Absolutely, because if you're trying to go to any one of our really cool districts that we have, where do you find people? If you've got to find parking and then meet up. So if you can say, meet me at this mural or meet me over here, then those are those landmarks to meet up at.
I think there's a concept called third spaces, and it's kind of like spaces in the internet, the cloud, right? So we have our physical space, we have this space that's in the cloud, and then we have the space that we have seen somebody be at in real life, and we too want to share that third space experience. And so it's driving that. I think there is a mural, the wings, right? The angel wings in the Shops at Legacy East.
Yes.
And that's a famous series that's all around America. So I'm curious, have we seen murals drive people, to the best of your knowledge, people come and look for murals?
Yes, absolutely. I've gotten phone calls of people looking for murals, the ones at Legacy Central by that artist is Adrian Torres. So that's this one. The murals over at Legacy Central, I've had people call trying to find those. So people are looking for the murals to come get the pictures, whatever it is. In downtown, we do a feature in the spring on our Instagram, the best places to get your senior pictures at. And we use our murals for that too, because the colors in the background really help those things pop. This is a coaster that Visit Plano is doing right now as a giveaway. So,
oh wow, that's
talk
gorgeous.
to us about that. So for people who are just listening and can't see, can you kind of describe what you're holding right here?
So this is one of Adrian Torres's murals that's over at Legacy Central. It's called the Hands of Life. So this is two hands holding hands, but in a very colorful, beautiful representation of it. And all of his murals are in that style when you go over there, because this is just one. There's like a series of 4 or 5 of them.
Well, you led the cultural arts master plan process for the city. You kind of coordinated our nonprofit groups and our consultant. As part of that, you all spent a lot of time looking at art in our public spaces. Listeners, Michelle has a background in the arts too, coming out of theater and stage design. So from your professional experience, what makes an artist or a mural successful? The ones in downtown, very different styles. We have a very historic feeling, and then we have this bright, colorful, almost pop art feel. But I would say both are equally popular. So what leads that?
I think it being different, like I said about scale, I think scale is important. I think identifying with the area that it's in. The Will Heron mural that's on the side of Georgia's Farmers Market might not work on a historic building, but that building with the white side towards the parking lot worked perfectly. So I do think it depends on its location and where it's at. And if it's authentic to its district, then that's going to make it more successful, more interesting.
Do people actually follow specific artists as well? I would assume there are artists that are known for mural work.
There are, and I follow several of them because I love their work. In fact, awesome. I've followed Andrea Holmes, who's done a lot of murals in downtown McKinney and throughout the Metroplex. And when we needed to restore the ghost mural on the side of the Sutton Furniture Building, she came out and restored that too. So
is there ever an ask? Like, do you ever see a space and think this would be a great opportunity for another mural to come in?
Yes, all the time. I walk the downtown district almost daily, and I have my cherry picked spaces. I'm working on one right now. It's on the side of the Frontier building in downtown. It wouldn't be painted on the building if we get permission, but there would be a structure put in where we could have rotating murals so that they come in on panels and we can change them out and give more opportunities for our artists here locally.
I feel like you also ought to explain to folks what the ghost mural is. I know what it is.
Oh.
But I don't know that everybody knows what it is. You know, is it a
I'm
mural
sorry.
of ghosts?
Yes.
No, it was not.
In on historic spaces, they used to paint on the bricks. And it's usually some kind of ad for whatever was there. Ours was a battery entire business, and it was on the back side of where Cocoa Beach is currently. And it's very faded, you can tell it's historic. They call those ghost murals because you can just barely see them. And we were about to lose that one completely. It was fading so bad from the sun. So when we restored it, we didn't restore it to new. We restored it to just so you'd be able to read it still. So we don't lose that history.
So why did you make that choice? So that it still felt old, or because that business doesn't exist? What leads that intention?
I think it reminds you of businesses from the past. In being the historic district, I'd hated to lose that opportunity to have those reminders. There was one on top of where McNeil's and Legends Tattoo was, and it pointed towards like rooms to rent. And that one's faded so bad now you can't. There's no way to restore it unless we had old pictures, which we don't of that specifically. Who's taking pictures of signs like that? So I hate to lose that just reminder that this had a different life decades ago. So
fascinating.
That is great.
I know. I mean, you just don't think about the choices that are made specifically to tell a story.
Right. And the connections to the past and keeping that alive for people.
So talk a little bit about the difference between public art and private art. I mean, there's something about accessibility of art and what art says to a community. What have you observed about that?
So public art is going to be more on public property. So that's going to be more led from your city, and you can do private-public partnerships where the city would allow a private entity to come in and do art on a space. But there are limitations that we have in public art. So we need something that's going to really appease the community, which is great. We typically, in the past, when we had a public art program, we would use a board of citizens to help us decide on the art. So the art that you see in Plano was chosen from a board of citizens. On private property, you can move much faster, and it can be the person's taste. So if it's out in the public, it also has to follow certain rules, but because you can't just put anything. But you can dictate what the art is, what you want to show the community, and what artist you want to exhibit.
Are there any that have surprised you or are your favorites? It's like asking, your favorite child, but are there favorites that you have around
in
town
public
right now?
art or in private art or murals?
In murals I would say in murals in general that are in public spaces. How about that? Like publicly viewable.
Sure. I do love the ones at Legacy Central. I think those are
beautiful.
Are
the Adrian Torres.
Yeah. I love George's, Will Heron's there. The one inside the new Anomalia Society building in downtown. It's a hair salon, but the mural in there is so beautiful and it encompasses the space so you feel immersed in it. The one that I mentioned in Shops of Legacy, where you kind of get to walk through the tunnel and it's on the ceiling and on the walls. I like the immersive feeling of it. So when I talk about scale, those are the ones that in color. Those are the ones that I'm drawn to.
What about you, Amanda? Do you have one that jumps out at you?
I think anything that's that you can make a pose with. So kind of like the angel wings or something that you can really kind of make an expression and do things with. That's what I tend to go for. Or anything that I can place my kids in front of and snap a picture. Mm-hmm. So we tend to go to Legacy a lot because there's so many different angles and opportunities. It's just that's where we go.
I love it. I love murals that have either they're bright colored, so I like a lot of color blocking, or ones that surprise and delight. I don't expect to see them, and they catch me off guard. You know, you turn a corner and then all of a sudden there's just something striking. Yes, it's beautiful, or it has just a message that I wasn't prepared to read, and it gives me something to think about. And I love those spaces because it transforms what is every day into something that's very special. So it's kind of fun. I love that Plano has embraced the idea of encouraging murals and also kind of being soft-handed about it and making it easy. Well, Michelle, let's go back to downtown Plano and thinking through, you know, what it's like post-mural installation. What changes have you seen in how visitors to downtown Plano interact? Has it increased stay time? What's different about it?
I do think it's increased stay time. I think it's increased people milling around the district and thinking more outside of the main 15th Street core. It gives them a reason to go to those different murals, take pictures, stay longer, do something after eating at one of our fabulous restaurants. So I do think it gives people a reason to stick around downtown and wander.
Do you think artists are now seeking out opportunities in Plano? Are you all hearing of more folks?
Our local artists are so hungry for opportunities. There's so many artists that are beautiful professional artists, and they're looking for those opportunities to contribute to their community. So
what encouragement would you give them, since it sounds like the bar to entry is relatively low? So is there path forward to get to know our local business community and have conversations?
Absolutely, because it's all it is identifying a space and going and talking to the business or property owner, because the bar to actually get a mural on the side of a property is pretty easy. So it could happen fairly quickly. We are with the cultural arts plan. It's a long-term plan, so we are working on it and phasing it in, but the idea is that we have also grants carved out for those kind of projects, because currently our grant program is reserved for nonprofits and not necessarily single artists. And so over time, there will be a phase where we'll have a grant for these kind of projects too.
Wow, that would be really awesome.
So you see a lot of these artists come in, and it really, the art reflects who they are as people. Do you think the murals also reflect who Plano is as a community?
Trying to think of all the murals together, I would say yes, absolutely. The ones in downtown were very intentional for Plano. But when I think about the ones at Legacy Central, it's not only the hands, but they also have the hot air balloons done in the same style. The ones in Shops of Legacy are very geared towards Texas specifically. And then the ones in, Legacy West does pop-up art installations, so I wouldn't discount those either. So,
well, and of course we also have I feel like it's not been static over time, but the murals that happen out at the boardwalk at Granite also are just really bold and fun, give you a reason to pose for photos and stay longer.
And I haven't even mentioned the one that is really kind of hidden, that people, when you come across it, it's just beautiful. But the mosaic mural over by the DART tracks in the Douglas community, it's just breathtaking. Yeah, but it's off. I mean, it's kind of in a cul-de-sac, so you have to know where you're going, or you happen upon it. And so I do love that one.
What about the longevity of some of these murals? We talked about how easy it is to get a mural put up, but what about when the paint starts to fade? Is there a process to restore it, or are there requirements to keep it looking beautiful once it starts to kind of come apart? What's there to keep it from starting to look ugly, I guess? Like, what happens then?
I know the ones that went through, the very first three that for downtown that went through the Heritage Commission, there was a maintenance plan that was part of that grant process and the permission for the property owners. But that's owned by Plano Art Association. So it was intentional of putting money back for maintenance over the years, so that way they'd have the money to have it restored. But that was in 2018, and I don't think any of them have been touched up yet. So I'm starting to see a fade on them, but we'll see when we get them restored.
Gosh, that's almost a decade though, so that's pretty good.
Or maybe they change. I'm not sure. I would hate to see them go, but I would also love to see something new. So.
Mm-hmm. So if somebody wants to explore murals in Plano, what's the best way that they find them? Where should they start, and how do they find what we have?
Leadership Plano had a project several years back. I forget which class. I'm sure it was the best class ever. That created Plano Art Walk. And when you go to that website, there's downloadable PDFs that lists a lot of these. I think they list all of them, or I can't remember if it's just public or, but that will get you started for sure. You can also go to visit Plano's website. There is a blog post about murals, and it shows where those are too.
Where would you tell them to start?
I'd go to Plano Art Walk.
Yeah. Yep. And your favorite mural for them to start at would be what? Start in downtown at the Douglas mural?
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. The Douglas mural is really impactful. So.
Mm-hmm. So for people who've lived here their whole lives, what murals do you think people may have missed?
I think the Douglas mural for one, because it's just you don't walk past it unless you're going to it really. So I think that one for sure. There's one on the side of Urban Seafood that's tucked away that's really pretty.
I do not know about this.
Yeah. The one on Black Rock Coffee is really nice. There's one on K Avenue at Primetime Insurance. I don't think that you would have seen. It's kind of fairly new. It's done by a pretty well-known artist around here. That one is done by, let me get her, Mariel Guzman. So it's very Latin inspired, a lot of color, very beautiful. Yeah, those are the ones that I think that people wouldn't necessarily think about. The ones at Legacy Central, I think people have seen pictures, but to know where it is, have you driven by them?
I drive by them pretty frequently. Okay, but that's because it's on my route. So for folks, it is near Legacy, just south of Legacy, on Central Expressway. I mean, it's just on the access road, so it's pretty easy to get to.
And those are great, and I love them. But I think it's talking about these other ones that you're mentioning right now, these unexpected, off the beaten path. Mm-hmm. That it's good to talk about those too, because you really can go anywhere in Plano potentially and see art.
And there's lots of murals inside spaces. I like Plano Tortilla Factory has one inside their restaurant, and I'm sure there's a ton. So
well, and the Muhlenbeck Rec Center now has a mural inside of it. So you really can go almost anywhere and unexpectedly find art.
I think it's saying something about our relationship to art, that it's becoming so common to have it in the space. And even still in your current role with downtown management, you still look at music and integrating those kind of experiential moments. And so art is no different in a flat form than it is in a performance, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Wow. All right. Well, looking ahead, especially since you've been part of the Cultural Arts Master Plan, what do you hope this art scene looks like 5 to 10 years from now? And maybe our mural.
That is such a we could do a whole Inside Plano podcast on that.
Bring it.
Just recognizing the local artists that we have in Plano. I think people think that they've got to go outside of Plano to experience art in any form, whether it's our symphony or our theaters or dance. And then obviously we're talking about murals today, so our visual artists. Just thinking about your Plano artists first. We have a lot of really great professional artists that live here in Plano and that have to do business in Dallas. So thinking about that first, letting the community really celebrating what we have here. That would be the short answer to that. So
I don't even know how to start with finding a Plano artist. Like, is there a resource database? Like, how do we, if somebody said, I do want to support my local art community,
contact me, because I have been over the years collecting a database of our local artists. We use it. That's what I use Art Drop Day for, is collecting our local artists and that.
I was going to say, if you're an artist and you want to do a mural, where do you start? How do you get involved to, join, I guess, the collection of Knowing You?
They could, because then I can try to connect them with businesses. But if you see a business that you're like, I would love to paint on that, contact them and see, so.
Because you mentioned it and we have a little bit of time, I feel like we should close with, what is Art Drop Day and how does that work? Because, I think we are talking kind of all things art in addition to murals.
So Art Drop Day during COVID, in the town that I live in, there was an artist that brought up this art drop day on Facebook. It was just some way to get the community to come together, and I started looking into it. And it's a world movement. It's called World Art Drop Day. And artists will hide art somewhere, post it for people to find, and if you find it, you get to keep it. And they typically just do them themselves. The artist will just hide it, and then whoever finds it gets to keep it. And I thought, well, what a wonderful addition to downtown and to our arts community to make that an event. So we don't do it on World Art Drop Day. We do it close to, because it's like on a Tuesday after Labor Day or something. And so what I'll do is I'll work with local artists, and I'll gather donated pieces, and then we hide them throughout downtown Plano on a Thursday, Friday. Depending on how many pieces of art we have, we'll drop them either every 30 minutes or once an hour. And when you find them, you get to keep them. And it does a couple of things. It gets the community to think about original art and understanding the importance and the fun of owning original art. And it gets the artists a little bit of exposure, because we post it in our stories and in the Facebook group of where the clues are. And it happens throughout the day, so everybody gets an opportunity. So early in the morning until late at night. So even if you have to work, there's no excuses.
Wow. All right. Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. I love art. I love that art is infused into our community. I love that I pass the Black Rock Coffee mural almost every day on the way to work, and Legacy Central on my way home, just because it's something that just gives me joy. And so, Michelle, thanks for your work in really promoting the local art community and being intentional in how spaces can be surprising and delighting.
Thank you for having me and letting me talk about it. So,
well, you're always welcome back, as you know, to the Inside Plano podcast. Well, listeners, if you have any ideas for future shows, questions that you have, or you want to follow up, you know how to do that. You just send us an email at askplano@plano.gov. Amanda and I read all of those emails, and we love your suggestions. They've led to some wonderful stories already this season. We will talk to you next time. Till then, bye.